I met my girlfriend, Emily, early this summer in 2018. Her son, Liam, was then a year old. Things were not going well from the beginning of our relationship. I endured a constant litany of lies and cheating, most often with her boyfriend Noah, Liam's father, for the first 4 years. The worst was February 2020 through November 2020, when she broke up with me because she wanted to protect her family with Noah. That was our longest break, and even then we kept in touch. She kept calling me, indicating that she'd gotten things wrong and wanted to be with me again. Contrary to my own judgment, I stayed, hoping that things would turn around. Eventually, Noah left her, and we reconciled. To my knowledge, the last time she slept with him was in the summer or fall of 2022. For years, it was almost a matter of stumbling upon glass ceilings whenever I dared to raise these issues with Emily. She didn't want to hear about it. When I grew mad and tried to explain things to her, she reacted and became angry. I needed to stuff my feelings down to make it okay. It wasn't until earlier this year, when I let her know I wanted to leave, that things started to change. That felt like her alarm, and I began to detect what seemed like honest regret. She started pushing herself harder, and I decided to give it another go. But despite her best efforts, I was finding it hard to stare at her as I did before. Over the weekend, we discussed everything one last time. She just described everything, including, cheating happens in life. You have to get over it. How long are you going to remain in the past? I'm telling you, I've evolved. You don't appreciate all that I do for you. I'm aware of what I'm offering, and I don't deserve this. Why should you leave now that I'm doing what you asked me to do? Hey, we'd make a great team if you would only forget the past. The last thing that struck me as particularly poignant was recently. One of Liam's classmates' birthdays was on a Saturday from 1 to 4 o'clock. Emily and Liam were there, and I expected them back near the end of the evening. Then Emily rang at 5:40 p.m. She explained to me that one of the other parents had asked them to come over to their place afterward. She said Noah would be collecting Liam after he'd left work, and she wasn't going to be around for long. She said, "I don't want to be here too long." Once Noah had picked up Liam, Emily was supposed to go home. Several hours passed, and she never answered. She finally arrived at 10:09 p.m. Her excuse? She flacked time and was hanging out with the other mothers drinking. When did Noah drop off Liam? I asked. But when I checked her phone later, Noah had actually picked him up at 6:42 p.m. That's about an hour and a half. When I questioned Emily about it, she exploded and berated me for not calling her a charlatan. She said it was not that big of a deal. Maybe she's right and it's not that big of a deal, but I just cannot accept anything even remotely suspicious about Noah. Afterwards, we both decided it was time to end it, but still I feel like I got robbed. Like I failed in some sense. Some of me thinks she'll simply return to Noah, which, Liam being Liam, is more likely to work out fine. But even so, I cannot help but feel that it's my fault. I'm thinking that if I could have processed everything that was wrong, we would have been fine. But she is now going to live happily ever after, and I feel as if I should have just had to endure all her flack while she diseased her brain. The second option was always my first choice, and it's easy to regret it now. I knew Emily's Noah history would be a hindrance, but I believed we would overcome it. I assumed love would help me through the tough days. I can remember when our relationship first began, everything looked great. We would spend weekends hiking the trails in Algonquin Park, photographing animals, planning our future together. They're hauntingly memorable. But over time, it was evident that I was always fighting for a space in her heart. Every time I thought we were moving forward, something about Noah would push her back. I tried to be understanding. He was, after all, Liam's father. I reminded myself that co-parenting was hard and I needed to be patient. But patience has limits. And every lie I caught her in made me wonder if I was lying to myself. I felt I should leave. My friend Ryan once told me, "Man, you're better than this. No, you don't have to play second fiddle to her history. But love makes you blind." If I stayed, she would realize how much I loved her, and it would be different. It's a shame to say, but I felt like if I loved her enough, she'd love me back. I've come to understand that love doesn't work that way. As I offered more, I surrendered. I was beginning to feel that I was not doing what I loved anymore. I didn't go to my hockey games on Tuesday nights because I wanted to be at home if she needed me. I canceled social gatherings because I felt guilty for leaving her with Liam. My world slowed to revolve around her and Liam. I didn't dislike Liam, he's a great kid, but I did come to disdain the smallness of my world. The moment of truth in our final lecture was dramatic. Emily's words remain fresh in my mind. "You don't appreciate everything I do for you," she grumbled. "How's all I've done for you?" I wished to respond, but I bit my tongue. I was certain it wouldn't matter. Her decisions were already settled. She felt like she'd taken care of it and that I had held us back. My relationship with Emily was complete once I had that last conversation, but I still had a strange feeling of uncertainty. It felt like an immobility of a transition and a sense of belonging. For a while, I just carried on with the mundane business of life, half expected her to call or text me with some big apologies. But the days turned into weeks, and I only received occasional reminders of Liam's school progress or a few photos she sent that seemed less like meaningful touchpoints than guilt offerings. Initially, I thought to myself that I didn't need it. I filled it with work, friends, and pursuing my own endeavors. I even got back in my hockey league and realized how much I'd been missing it. Tuesday nights became a time to be jolted back. The sensation of being on the ice, skating past a defender, and getting an assist was unforgettable. It made me aware that I had some remnants of myself buried beneath all the drama. There were tough times, too. I would find myself browsing through old photographs of us both, laughing while we hiked in Algonquin Park or sat on her apartment patio. Each image was a little gut punch. I missed her, or who I thought she was. The most painful part was knowing that she likely would never have looked like the one I imagined. Ryan, my office friend, was always my voice of reason. He had been through it all. "Boy, you're out now," he'd announce over pints at the Moose Pub. "You were caged with that woman. Look at you now. You're playing hockey again, you're hitting the gym, you're back to being yourself. She's not worth it." He was right, though it didn't lessen its impact. I didn't want anyone to know, but part of me was curious if Emily would become someone else. Would she be a better option for Noah? Did she use me as the test subject until she got it right? It was an unhealthy cognitive escapade, but it was hard to halt once it got underway. About a month after our split, I met Emily at a local supermarket. It was one of those watch each other from afar and make no effort to ignore moments. But eventually, our carts went into the same aisle. She grinned as if nothing had happened. "Hey, new guy," she said, as if we were old acquaintances. "Well," I said, my face kept silent. Liam was by her side in the cart, clutching a box of goldfish crackers. He saw me and waved. "Hi," he said with a huge smile. My heart felt like it was pulled shut. I'd known that kid so long, and I loved him. "How's everything?" she asked, casually tossing a box of cereal into her cart. Like we were acquaintances, not a couple that had been married for years. "I'm good. Work, play hockey again, work," I replied. I didn't ask how she was doing. I really didn't want to know. "That's great," she said, and there was a tense pause. "Liam's doing great. It's just everything he's studying. You would be so proud of him." "I'm sure he's doing awesome. He's a bright boy," I explained, looking at Liam, not her. She took a moment to add, "I'm good to see you." She then wheeled her cart past me and kept moving. "No apology. No, for everything I've done to you. None. A simple good to see you, as if we were just friends who once knew each other." It was maddening. It lingered with me the rest of the evening. Her nonchalance bothered me. I kept replaying it over and over again in my head, wondering whether or not I should have said more. But after all, what would have been the point? People don't change unless they wish to, and Emily had told me who she was. The issue was that I hadn't trusted her the first 10 times. I worked hard following that experience. I began going to the gym on a regular basis. I wanted to not only look good, but to feel better. It's very gratifying when you see your gains, lift more weights, and see your body change. It was a sense of control, and I needed it. I couldn't have controlled Emily, but I could have controlled this. Ryan noticed the change too. "Oh man, look at you," he exclaimed one night at the bar. "You're on fire. Get the poundage, get the glow up, and you're back to life. You're killing it." "Yeah, well, that heartbreak works. I laughed. "Hell, dude, you're doing this for you. Do not congratulate her on that. She's old news." And he was right again. I'd been too busy attributing my suffering, my development, and everything in between to Emily. It wasn't all her fault. I had allowed myself to get trapped in that cycle. I permitted myself to believe I could heal a person who didn't want healing. It felt most liberating when I deleted all our pictures off my phone. I was afraid it would sting, but it felt like slicing skin. With every brush to the trash can, I felt lighter. I had been struggling with memories that were never quite as idyllic as I had hoped. It was gone. The Algonquin Park photographs, the twee selfies on lazy Sundays. All gone. I did keep one photograph, though, of me and Liam at the zoo. I didn't save it for her. I saved it for me. Liam was never the problem. I loved that kid, and maybe I'd just be able to take that picture one day and smile and not feel everything else. Life slowly moved on. I stopped scrolling through her social media, stopped wondering what she was up to, and I knew if I didn't stop searching, I would discover something hurtful. It's like tearing off a scab. You know it's going to bleed, but you do. I was done with that, and by the holidays, I sensed a change. My family noticed it too. "You look lighter, happier." My mom pulled me aside over Thanksgiving dinner. "Did something change?" "Yeah, I'm sure it did," I said to her. And it was true. I'd renounced feeling good enough for someone who didn't deserve me. That was my big change. By New Year's, I was a different man. I'd lived so long for someone else, it felt good to live alone. I crafted new goals for myself, not in revenge, not for anyone's goodwill. I hoped to challenge myself. I signed up for a 10K race in the spring and began training every morning before work. At first, it was brutal. My legs stung, my lungs were burning, and I didn't understand why I had signed up. But within a few weeks, something had changed. The pain became manageable, and I began to feel better. Running became my therapy. Ryan was my biggest cheerleader. "You're a freak, dude," he'd say whenever I texted him about my progress. He even joined me for some of my runs, walking beside me and making jokes to encourage me. It felt good to have a friend who took me seriously without expecting anything in return. I spotted Emily with Liam and Noah on a run in the park one day. It caught me off guard. She looked happy, like really happy. They were chuckling about something, and Liam was slinking forward, indicating trees. I paused a moment, not sure whether to wave or just keep moving. But then I realized I was not upset. I did not feel jealous. And for the first time, I just felt nothing. I increased my speed and continued running. I was free. The race day finally arrived in April. It was early in the morning, and the city had closed some of its main thoroughfares for the occasion. The weather was clear and not cold, which was great for running. I stood at the starting line, among hundreds of other runners, the adrenaline going wild in my chest. Once the race started, I was soon into my stride. One step after another, breath after breath, I was only focusing on what would come next. About halfway, I found myself smiling. And not because I was winning, I was halfway down the list, but because I was doing this for me. At the end, my legs were swelling, my heart pounding, and I could give up at any second. But I had done it. I had finished. Ryan waited for me at the finish, shouting like a maniac. "You're unstoppable, man," he hugged me. That following week, I had erased Emily's number from my phone. I had been clutching at it like some sort of safety net, but no longer required it. I wasn't going to text her, and I definitely wasn't needing her to text me. It was one of those trivial, symbolic moments that seemed much more important than it probably was. It was like shutting a door and locking it. Life continued to improve in the subsequent months. My job promoted me and offered me a good raise. I put some of that extra money towards my own solo trip to Banff, a trip I'd always wanted to make, but had never been brave enough to do. I went hiking, enjoying the scenery, and hanging out alone for a week. It was quiet as never before. There was no calling, no drama, me in the mountains. On a lodge evening, I chatted with a woman called Claire. She came from Vancouver and was also traveling alone. We clicked instantly. She had an incisive sense of humor and a laugh that was infectious. The rest of the trip was spent with them, retelling tales around fires and walking the trails together. It felt easy. No games, no anxiety, just two people enjoying each other. Before leaving Banff, Claire and I had exchanged numbers. "Maybe I'll meet you in Vancouver one day," she said with a mischievous grin. Once again, I didn't squirm. If it happened, it happened. If not, I'd be okay. It was finally time to learn how to do okay for myself. After returning home, I was left to wonder about the year. It was astonishing how a year can do such things. And from being trapped in a toxic cycle with Emily, I came to my sense of self-sacrifice. I was a proud man now. I had reclaimed my self-esteem, found fulfillment in my passions, and taught myself to put myself first. We will always have Emilis, the kind of person who gives you breadcrumbs of care and asks that you give them the whole loaf. But I knew it now, and I would never give up. Ryan sent me a text one night. It was a picture of a generic inspirational quote plastered across a gym wall saying, "If it ain't tough on you, don't change." It said, "This got you on it, dude." Under it, I laughed out loud. He was right. Every issue I struggled with Emily, every fear, every defeat, it had altered me. And not in the way I had anticipated. It made me stronger, not weaker. It taught me to be more responsible, not less cruel. And as I dropped my phone and put on my running shoes, I knew I was prepared for whatever awaited me.